Hey everybody, last chance to take advantage of this sale. Make sure you guys get it. New site will be available soon. Make sure you get it at this price. Everybody who ordered already, make sure you guys check your emails. Updates have been sent out. But after today, the prices will be back to normal. If you go on the site, you will see the prices have changed. This is the only place you can get it at this price. The link is in the description. Make sure you guys take advantage. Last day for the flash drop sale. Last day to get Never Pay Again membership. The new site will have courses that are paid courses unless you are a Never Pay Again member. Make sure you guys take advantage. Last day.
And as I said, a lot of researchers will tell you that there is a lot of underground tunnels underneath Kemet that are yet to be explored, or they just not telling us, what they found down there. Now, also, when you go to Turkey, to Derinkuyu, they have found an underground civilization there that they believe was set up by the Hyksos. And it's attached to Zoroastrianism. They believe the people around there was into that faith, and that, it was built around this time when that religion started to come up. A lot of people believe that it's much older, and the tunnels is much older, and they just basically built on what they had already found there. But it's a story in the whole Zoroastrian religion about Ahura Mazda, who is basically the god of the religion, telling them to go and hide, or go and to create these underground cities to live in, to hide from a war that was going to be happening in the sky, to hide from the sky war. So, it's a lot of stories that we find in the ancient world that's dealing with, as I talked about, this war or this cataclysmic event that happened on Earth. It's a lot you have to take into consideration when you're doing something as complex as building these tunnels and these underground civilizations. You have to know where exactly to put pillars, where exactly to put load-bearing pillars, and, what part of the soil was soft and hard, where is the water supply going to come from, where are you going to put ventilation and, lighting and everything like that. It's a lot of complex stuff that go into underground caverns and cities. And a lot of people would think that, the people back then was primitive, but you had to be very intelligent to do something this advanced, and what you would have to use to dig miles and miles, 5 million square feet of, or square miles of space underground. I mean, the workload, they had to have something to do this. And then when you start getting into some of the other underground caverns that we find, I mean, some of them are so vast and so big and deep, it makes you wonder if this stuff was already there and they expanded on it. And, how did they build a lot of these underground caverns? Now, we find these underground caverns, these underground civilizations all over the earth. There's many stories I know a lot of you have seen about, people, doing work on their homes and finding entranceways into underground civilizations. There was a story about that in Turkey and Paris as well, about underground civilizations and all these vast passageways leading to underground civilizations. We find this stuff all over the earth, and we also find pyramids all over the planet. Now, both of these things have something in common, that there is either water directly under them or somewhere near them. Now, a lot of you have heard about the whole hollow earth theory, that when you go much deeper into the planet, there's supposed to be, huge cities underground and, people, advanced civilizations living underneath the earth. We're going to get into the hollow earth theory a little bit later into this. But the whole question is why? Why underground? What is the whole, purpose of underground? You would think that, it would be better to be on the surface, with the sun out, and it just seems more beautiful on the surface. It's something that you really think about. Why underground? Now, the thing is this is what you have to understand. And some of you know this already, some of you do not, because they don't teach it to us. Now, on the surface of the earth, when we living up here, we are being exposed to all kinds of cosmic radiation. That's a fact. Now, most of the radiation is completely harmless. It goes right through us. It doesn't affect us. But there's a lot of it that does affect us. And our body cells is continually, ever since the first day we are born, our body cells is consistently fighting against this radiation, but it also has to fight against microbes and bacteria and viruses and diseases. So our body cells is continually fighting against these things for our entire life. Now, the deeper you go underground, you are not exposed to any of these things because there's a high concentration, a very high level of negative ions. That is the word of the day, negative ions. Pay attention because this is the main point I want to make in this entire video. What negative ions is. I don't know what you have been told about them, but you have to understand this. Negative ions play a major role in the cycle of nature on this planet, period, point blank. They play a very vital role in our lives. This is something that is not being taught to us. A lot of people remember those bands people used to walk around with, supposed to be, dispersing negative ions, whatever like that. You have to really understand what negative ions is, and we're going to really get into that in this video. But underground, negative ions exist, and what negative ions do is they completely wipe out radiation, microbes, viruses, and everything like that. They cleanse the body so that your body cells can do what they are meant to do. Your body cells, our body cells, are meant to regenerate. Understand, something that regenerates can never die, because it keeps regenerating. This is what negative ions is supposed to do. So underground, it's a high concentration of it, and people in theory, and not even in theory, really scientifically proven, will actually live longer with a high concentration of negative ions because your cells will just regenerate. I want you to think about something. I want you to think about stem cell research. The reason why stem cell research works is because they can do these experiments with the stem cells, and the cells have let's say a sterilized environment to work with. Now, when your body cells, as I said, is not fighting anything, they do their job, and that is to regenerate you. So this is why stem cell research work. I also want you to think about cancer patients. When they go get their chemotherapy treatment, what happens is there's a high concentration of radiation, emitted to, the tumor or the cancerous part of their body. And what happens is their body cells, basically come together and fight hard because it has to fight off that radiation. It tries to fight it off. This is why, when they finish the whole treatments, they are completely weak and, they're tired. They start losing their hair because the cells, that's basically holding your strands of hair together have to basically go to the energy used to fight off this bombardment of radiation to your body. So you get weak, you start losing your hair, and they have to use a high concentration of radiation, to shrink the tumor. But it takes a toll on your body. And this is why some people don't die from, the cancer. They die from the radiation. And this has been proven. So, our body cells are meant, whoever created us, understand this. Our body cells were meant to basically heal us. And to, the implications is if your body cells is doing its job, you should be living on this planet for thousands of years. But there are other things that's keeping that from happening. We're going to get into in this video. Now, also, I want you to think about trees. Think about the fact that there are some trees that live thousands of years. If a tree is in the right location and has the right supply of resources, we talk about sunlight, a good, channel of water underground that they can tap into, or if it rains a lot in that area, if they can get their roots deep enough, we know trees can live for hundreds and thousands of years. Now, with some researchers in Australia, in Queensland University, in Brisbane, Australia, who did some research on trees and plants that they say, basically was electrifying the atmosphere. Now, listen to this. And this is from Queensland University of Technology. It says, plants have long been known as the lungs of the earth, but a new finding has found they may also play a role in electrifying the atmosphere. Scientists have long suspected an association between trees and electricity, but researchers in Australia think that they have finally discovered the link. The scientists ran experiments in 6 locations around Brisbane. They found the positive and negative ion concentration in the air were twice as high in heavily wooded areas than in open grassy areas such as parks. Now, I want you to understand what this is saying. It is saying that the trees are pulling the negative ions out of the air. They don't really want the positive ions, even though they're going to be there. They want the negative ions because the negative ions is going to sustain them. Now, trees, plants are living things just like we are. So if they're pulling the negative ions out of the air into their atmosphere and using it to sustain themselves and keep themselves, going for years, centuries, millennia in many cases, this is something you need to think about because it's really deep. And what's going on. Understand, as I said, this is a natural cycle. This is what's supposed to happen. The negative ions keep them alive. It's that simple. Now, understand the key to this whole thing is water. Water is the key. Now, we're talking about basically the effects of negative ions on the body, and a consistent level of negative ions would sustain the body. We're talking about the fountain of youth here. This is why the fountain of youth, always was a fountain. It had to deal with water because water is the key to this thing. So now you have to have this steady supply, a continuous, infinite supply of negative ions to basically sustain you for who knows how long. Unless somebody blow your brains out, you would basically, in essence, live forever. And trees are able to do this. Not only can they pull the negative ions, from the ground and the water, but they can pull it out of the moist air. When all these trees are clustered together, it really creates a humid atmosphere that's muggy. And there's moisture in the air when you have that muggy atmosphere, and it can pull the negative ions right out of the air and redisperse it around them, turning their atmosphere into nothing but negative ions. The reason why you have to have it continuous, because once it dissipates, what happens? You're exposed to the radiation. You're exposed to microbes. You're exposed to any kind of viruses and bacteria that may be, anywhere near you. So having that steady supply of negative ions is key to this whole thing. So now, of course, if the atmosphere is full of this cosmic radiation, if this atmosphere is full of microbes and viruses and stuff like that is causing harm to our body, of course, if you understand that there is a way to create a negative ionosphere, or to create negative ions that could surround the area and basically do what the trees are doing, pulling negative ions, out of the water and putting it into the air, then you have to do this. This is the purpose of the pyramids. This is why the pyramids were all over the world. How did you get negative ions? Remember I said water is the key. You get negative ions from the force of energy of falling or splashing water. This causes the splitting of neutral air particles that frees up electrons that then attach themselves onto other air molecules, causing a negative charge. Now, at the base or at the bottom of the pyramid, remember, it's over top of water. What happens is you have the splashing of water onto these the bottom of the pyramid, which shakes off negative ions and accumulates energy onto the pyramid. So now the reason why they built the pyramid under these ley lines is because the multi-level structure of the pyramid basically draws in more ions, and it basically creates more negative ions to disperse into the atmosphere. So this is what the pyramids were doing. They were amplifying their energy from the negative ions and basically creating more negative ions, or a consistent flow of negative ions into the atmosphere. So, Kemet was hot, and there's moisture in the air, so it will be a stronger, negative ionosphere, or negative atmosphere of, or an atmosphere of negative ions in Kemet, because it was moist, hot air. But this was everywhere. We could bet that even if it was cold, if they were able to do this, they did it. I don't know how much effect it had on the climate in cold places, but we know they did this, and because they did this, things were able to grow. I want you to go back and look. Remember, the Nile, fertile, is right there. But remember, before, the Sahara Desert was not a desert. It didn't used to be a desert. It was fertile. It was green. And what happens is the negative ions causes trees to grow huge when they have a steady amount. They grow huge. They grow in abundance. So understand that, remember, When you look at the depictions, the hieroglyphics of the ancient Egyptians, they were farming, remember? They had agriculture. They were farming. They was plowing the ground and tilling the ground, meaning that the land was fertile. Why? Because of the pyramids. So what happens now when you go to Kemet now? It's sand. It's a desert. The Sahara is a desert. Why? Because somebody came along and destroyed those pyramids. This is just proof positive, people. I'm telling you, when you do the research, you can put this stuff together. This was the purpose of the pyramids. To one, do exactly what the trees were doing, to do exactly what was happening underground, having a consistent flow of negative ions that basically sustain people, but not just people, the vegetation, the trees. This was alive and well all over the world, especially in Kemet. This is why pyramids were all over the place. Even some of the pyramids you find now, some people think that they are still active and still pulling negative ions out of the ground, out of the water, and dispersing it in the air. You find a lot of pyramids that is covered with plants or covered with grass and stuff like that. And this is why, because it's still working in some places and still drawing in these negative ions. This is why they built the pyramids underneath the ley lines, so they can amplify. Because all we're talking about here is energy. As I always keep telling you, it all goes back to energy. That's all we're talking about. We're talking about energy. So the pyramids amplified this energy and dispersed it. This is why Kemet and the Sahara Desert is a desert now. It didn't used to be. It was fertile because of the ionosphere, because of the negative ions that the pyramids was creating. Now, understand, most of you, depending on where you live at in the world, you see this process every day. If you have an air conditioner, you've seen this process happen. You just didn't understand what it was. Now, do you water your air conditioner? No, you don't. But you notice that your air conditioner is constantly dripping water. You try to pick that thing up, it's going to start leaking. Who the hell put water in the air conditioner? You start thinking about it. What happens is the air conditioner does exactly what the trees does. It's creating negative ions. It pulls in the moisture from the air, which is why you use the air conditioner when it's hot, when it's humid. There's moisture in the air. It uses that moisture and change it into negative ions to give you cold air. It's the process. That whole process I just talked about is happening within your air conditioner, and the energy from the negative ions is being used to basically change, well, along with help from the socket, electricity from the house or whatever, is using the whole process to give you cooler air. It's the same thing. You see the process every single day. And a lot of people don't realize it. You got to understand and start looking at certain things to understand why certain things are the way that it is. And, it's science to a lot of it. I know a lot of it is like nerd and weird talk. But when you start looking at this stuff, you can see, the process and why certain things are done and how it is done. So when you go back and look at the Egyptians we talk about today, the Egyptians we know of, Netertket and Zoser, Tutankhamun or whatever like that, the pyramid builders understand. They knew what the pyramids were doing. They knew the power of the pyramids. So what started to happen? They could see that the land started to become, unfertile. They can see it started to change over to desert. Remember, you read the stories when you start reading about ancient Kemet, how people started to come into Kemet because the land was fertile. They tried to escape famine. Remember, the same thing started happening inside of Kemet. Famine started to happen because the crops wasn't growing. This is why they tried to rebuild the pyramids. They tried to recreate desperately the ionosphere, the negative ions, around Kemet, so that they can keep the land fertile and so they can, keep on growing. And I don't know if they succeeded. Now you have the step pyramid of Netertket, you have the bent pyramid of Sneferu, and you have all these other pyramids that collapse and were, I guess, later turned into tombs, some of them, or maybe they had other purposes for them, but they desperately try to recreate the pyramids so they can do exactly what I explain and pull these negative ions out. They tried to recreate the process. This is why they did it. They seen Kemet started to turn. And, during the decline of Kemet, before they was invaded by the Persians and everybody else who came in there, they may have figured it out, or they may have had a way, to sustain themselves. But this is why they started to rebuild the pyramids. Now, if it was people living underground thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, there's a chance that there are still people living underground today. Now, with some researchers who went to the Grand Canyon to basically try to find, the whole legend of the underground city. And they basically did an interview with one of the Hopi Indians there who was talking about a time where, the Hopis or the Indians had to basically go live underground to basically survive this cataclysmic event. Now, understand, he's talking about a cataclysmic event, that happened. When you look at the whole interview, I won't put the whole thing up there, but it happened thousands of years ago. And, the Indians are very good at passing down stories. And you have to basically try to equate this timeline into the same timeline as the ancient Egyptians probably living underground, as I talked about. But now the whole thing is there were so many underground caverns and tunnels and passageways found underneath the United States. You have a lot of national parks that have caves, like Crystal Caves, and you have the cave, Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, Mammoth Cave in Kentucky that has, hundreds of miles of underground tunnels and caverns and everything like that. If you take a look at it, it's amazing, what they have found under there. And you gotta realize something. This is the reason why we have so many national parks in America. Now, whenever they know that there could possibly be tunnels and caverns leading into, inner Earth, or what they say into inner Earth, into these underground cities, they always change it into a national park so they can control the exploration of these tunnels and these caverns. And Mammoth Cave is no different. They change it into a park and they try to create some rides and make some money off of it. But really, it's being done to control exploration because they don't want nobody doing any independent research under there that they cannot control. This is the same thing with the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon, to my surprise, is even more controlled than when I went there, years ago. Now, when you go there, first of all, you got to go through gates and you have to pay $30. If you're in the car, it's $30 to get in. To get to the one side of the Grand Canyon. Now, when you get there, it's basically so many reservations. Not so much reservations. You find stores and you find like lodges. It's campgrounds now on that one side when you go through the gate. Bunch of campgrounds, a bunch of lodges, and you see a bunch of kids there, a bunch of college kids, and a bunch of people out there camping. So the whole thing is, when you go up to the front, you pay to get in or whatever like that. And then you just follow the road and, you get to the parking lots and the visitor center and everything like that. And then, you basically supposed to be able to see the Grand Canyon right then and there, but it's obstructed by these trees and the visitor center and everything like that. But after you get through it, you'll see, bam, right in front of your face, the Grand Canyon. Now, there's another way you can get there from the other side. But if you try to come in from the other direction, there is really no roads. There is no gas stations. It's supposed to be a long trip to get to the other side, to come from the other side. And then when you get there, we're talking about a 1.5 mile drop into the canyon. So the best way to get into the canyon is, the Colorado River. Now, if you go there, you can pay for, rafting tours and hiking tours or whatever like that. But to even, stay there, to camp there, you got to get a permit. If you have a film crew, you got to get a permit. If you want to stay there overnight, you got to get a permit. You need a permit so they can control your exploration. And according to the legend, the entrance to these underground cities is so far, so deep into the canyon that nobody, can basically get there with enough supplies, enough water and food supplies to survive the trip. And the one way that was close enough is supposed to be blocked off. I took a trip there and I wanted to basically get some video footage that we can have. So it's not somebody else's footage. So I can show you that I personally was there and I personally seen a lot of these things. I actually end up taking 3 trips there because the weather was an issue. I was supposed to take a chopper. The wind was an issue, so I had to postpone it. And then the wind was an issue again. So instead of me just not going and canceling the whole trip together, I just drove up there. So as I said, you'll see in the video, when we approach the gates, take a look.
Everybody see how you got to get to the Grand Canyon, how they got it set up to where you got to pay to get through. Just go right up through. Okay, so we know in 1907, supposedly, an archaeologist came down here who was doing some kind of exploring and found an entrance to what is said to be an underground, city, ancient Egyptian city. So we know they're supposed to have found Egyptian artifacts there. Also, Hindu and Buddhist artifacts as well. If you look at some of those pictures, you'll see this one picture looks like inside of a cave with a huge Buddhist statue. So, most of the people who come here talking about that, what the artifacts they found. We're talking about 1907. Now, supposedly between 1907 and 1909, you had the Smithsonian supposed to came here and removed all of the artifacts that were supposedly found here. Supposedly there was mummies and, it was a tomb. It was supposed to be a huge crypt there. Gold and all kinds of stuff that they removed from here between 1907 and 1909. And this is what the stories talk about. So the Indian tribes that's here who talk about a time where they could go freely in this underground city. So this entrance is supposed to be about, 1.5 miles down. It's supposed to be a hard way to get to this specific place. Supposedly, you're supposed to go down the Colorado River, and it's some kind of way where you can look up and see this supposed entrance. I know it was a shot that you can see like these holes that in the side of the Grand Canyon. You can see in the mountains and everything like that. So a lot of people say that's an entrance, or it pertains to the area that they are talking about. Right over my shoulder is the pyramid-shaped mountain that you see a lot when you look at pictures of the Grand Canyon, and it's the one that they look to the most as supposedly being a pyramid. It's pyramid-shaped. It is beautiful when you take a look at it. A lot of these mountains around here could be pyramids when you take a look at them. There's a lot of pyramid-shaped mountains around here. But the whole thing is, they wanted to check to see that the pyramids align with the stars on Orion's belt, like in Kemet. But they don't align with the stars on Orion's belt. They do, however, align with the rest of Orion. When you take a look at the points, you can see it lines up with the Egyptian named mountains that are here in the Grand Canyon. It's everywhere. Now, I played the clip before about one Indian guy who was talking about a time where that they had came and hid in the Grand Canyon, where they came to hide from some kind of cataclysmic event, as I was talking about before in the other parts. So supposedly they came here to hide when something happened here. And you have to really think about it now when they're talking about hiding during some cataclysmic event. How long ago was this event? So the sun is beginning to set here, and I want to finish up this quick part. The thing is, they supposedly had blocked off the real entrance to the underground city, what have you. And the only way to get there, is by foot. You can't get there supposedly by chopper. You can't get there by no kind of vehicle. You have to hike your way in there, supposedly. And they say that, it takes days. And, when you look at the other side of the Grand Canyon, if you was to come from the other side of the Grand Canyon, there's really no roads, there's no gas stations or stores or anything for you to stop and, get supplies. So we talk about a long journey, if you want to bypass all of this tourism and, cottages and camping grounds and stuff like that. No camera does this place justice. Nothing. You have to come here. You got to see it for yourself. You got to really take a look at it. But then you got to really get into the mystery of this place and everything that's here. Like you really start to think when you see the carvings and when you look at the, pyramid-shaped mountains and everything like that. And the fact that they named a lot of these mountains after the ancient Egyptians, like, Osiris and Isis and stuff like that. So it really gets you thinking. And the tour guides will talk about that. And a lot of people talk about it when they come through here. So. Now, one of the things that you have to really take a look at, and this is what has people who really do research looking
at the Grand Canyon hard. I mean, look at this wall here. Just take a look. Now, if I take a fork and I scrape the fork up against the wall, you're going to see the marks from the fork. So you're going to be able to tell that it was some kind of instrument that did this. Now, look at the walls here. Look at the uniformity of the lines all the way around. I mean, it's uniform. You can see the scrapes as if something hit it or carved it out. See these lines here? I mean, take a look at that. It's uniform. I mean, you can measure them. So it's as if, I mean, look down there. Take a look at this. Let me see if I can get this in here. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so now when you step back and start looking at everything, we know, I talked about in part 3, how humans and dragons or dinosaurs did coexist. Now, we know that according to them, the dinosaurs was killed off by some kind of cataclysmic event or a meteor or what, millions of years ago, according to them. Now, we also have ancient civilizations. We have the Indians saying that they had to go and hide underground because of some cataclysmic event. Now, we can guess that this had to be the same cataclysmic event that killed off most of the dinosaurs and forced people underground. Has to be the same event. So we're talking about all this stuff had to have happened, sometime after the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx were built, because they basically survived that, event. Whatever happened, it survived it, forced people underground. And when the ancient Egyptians came out, they could see the pyramids still there, but they obviously was damaged and not working. But I believe the land was still fertile. But now, as I said again, this raises too many questions. You would think that if they would build something that would stand the test of time, like the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx that survived, flooding and water erosion and everything like that, that they would build themselves a city on the surface as well that could stand up to any kind of cataclysmic event. But we don't find the ruins of any civilization older or as old as, the Great Pyramids that's, more advanced. Because you would think that they would build themselves a city that's more advanced than the Great Pyramid, a huge, unbelievably technologically advanced civilization. This is why, a lot of people believe in, Atlantis and Lemuria and stuff like that, that they, sank underwater, but this is where they had their huge, advanced civilization, but it sank. But then you would have to look at the rest of the world, which is still so vast, and then ask, why not build in other places as well, especially in Africa, when Africa seems to be the best place where you should build. Now, because of that, this is another reason why people believe in the whole hollow earth theory. They believe that there are massive cities in hollow earth underground, and it's a lot to support that. Now, for people who don't want to accept any of that, they just say, well, aliens built the pyramids for whatever reason. Now, the whole thing that crushes the whole aliens building the pyramids theory is the fact that the ancient Egyptians who came out after the cataclysmic event, we can see clearly that they tried to rebuild the pyramids. Now, if aliens built the pyramids, then why would they think that they can recreate them? They had to have had advanced knowledge. They had to have had an understanding of how to build these pyramids and the purpose of the pyramids in the first place, what they was doing as far as the negative ions. They understood this. They had to have this advanced knowledge somehow, which is what I talked about in 2 and 3, how they were remember the whole parable, man, know thyself. They were starting to remember who they were. So this played, a major part in that. But if aliens built it, there's no way they would have thought that they can actually go ahead and recreate the pyramids. But, it's some unbelievably weird, crazy stuff going on. I've been doing this research for, years now. And, it's led me, to so many different places. And, hopefully you guys can take this research and hopefully it's filling in a lot of gaps for you. But in my research, the whole hollow earth theory fits. I'm going to explain why. I already really explained why, but I'm going to get into it a lot more. Now, if you can't accept the hollow earth theory, then you will have to accept the fact that mankind was put on this planet about 8,000 years ago. let's just ballpark it and just say about 20,000 years. We wasn't on here for more than 20,000 years. The reason why you would have to accept that is because we just don't find any ruins that's that old. I'm talking about older than Heru Imhotep, the Great Pyramid or whatever. We don't find any ruins. You would expect to see ruins of a major city somewhere predating the pyramids, predating the Sphinx.